Hello there. Thank you for tuning in to this MuleSoft developer tutorial. My name is Aridam Kumar, and I belong to the technical product marketing team at MuleSoft. Today, I'll walk you through how to use the API Designer inside Anypoint platform to build your very first API specification. To get started, log into your Anypoint platform account and navigate to the Design Center by clicking on Start Designing. This will display a list of any past projects that you have, in case you have any. For today, instead of going over an existing project, we're going to select Create New, and then select New API Spec. Here we can specify a name for our specification, such as NTO Customer Database API. You now have the option of selecting one of the programming languages to custom build your API, or you can select Guide Me Through It to take advantage of the Anypoint platform visual builder for API specifications. Select Create API Spec to then pull up a blank version of this specification. Starting at the top, we're going to specify a title, NTO Customer Database API. We're then going to specify a version, such as 1.0.0. We're going to select the different protocols that our API will support, and the type of media that's going to be used to communicate with this API. For now, we can give this a sample base URI. Remember that this is just an API specification, and the actual implementation of the API is the next step after the specification has been built. Therefore, giving any sample base URI for now is sufficient, and it can be later updated once your API is hosted somewhere. And lastly, on this page, we're going to specify a description, NTO Customer Database API to access NTO's customer records. As you can see, that while we're developing the specification in the Visual Designer, Anypoint Studio takes care of the RAML code and the OAS code for us. Along the left, you will see the option to import from Exchange. This is a simple way to access existing assets that are published by other MuleSoft developers on Anypoint Exchange. For example, the NTO Customer Database API that was developed earlier, in case you would like to see the finished product rather than build it today. Underneath that option, you will also see the sections for security schemes, resources, and data types. For this tutorial, we need to add two new data types. The first is called address. It is of type object. A simple description will be address data type. Next, we need to add a few different properties. 1. Street, which is of type string. 2. City of type string. 3. Postal code of type string. 4. State of type string. And lastly, country of type string. As you can see, adding each property automatically updated the RAML code along the right. You can also take a look at the MuleSoft developer site for this tutorial and find sample code snippets that you can copy and paste. In this case, simply hit Edit and copy and paste the example code into this section. Now we will add another data type. This one is called contact. The description can include contact data type, and we must again add a few properties, specifically first name of type string, last name of type string, which is actually going to be required as at least one aspect of a customer's name must be a part of the contact, phone of type string, email, delivery address, which in this case will be of type address. One of the most powerful things that the specification builder can offer you is the ability to use existing data types for new data type properties. And postal address, also of type address. Again, you can click Edit and copy and paste the excerpt from the tutorial site for this example. Next, it's time to add resources, which are the various endpoints that we can call to send and receive information from the API. Go ahead and select the plus icon and click Add Resource, and then begin updating the information. Our first resource will be called Customers. As you can see, we can specify different types of requests for customers. In our example, we will only be building GET requests, which will allow us to retrieve information that is already stored within the database that this API will access. In the summary, we can go ahead and say GET list of customers, And then we can navigate to the Responses tab and add a new response for this request. And you can select Add Body to build the specification for this response. In this case, our response for customer will be of type array. It will be returning a list of customers to us. And the type will be contact, as we just defined in the data types. As you can see, selecting the type contact updated the YAML code on the right and the example provided with the input you had given earlier. Now we can add our second resource. In this case, customers/customer ID, which you will notice is in curly braces. This means that customer ID is actually a dynamic input that will be specified at the time the call is made. For example, customer ID 1 or 2 or 123. This is known as a URI parameter. So you can select URI parameters, add a URI parameter, and give it the same name, customer ID. Make sure that you select required, as without that the API will not function, and it can be of type string. Again, we will define the GET request, and inside the summary we can say get customer by ID, and then we can navigate to the Responses tab, add a new response, add a body for the response, and this time select contact instead of array. Earlier, the API was returning a list of customers, but this time it will return only one customer contact based on the ID provided when we're making the request. And that's it. Congratulations. You have now successfully built an API for NTO's customer database with two resources, one that returns a list of customers and another that returns a specific customer based on ID. You have also defined two data types, a type address and then a type contact, which uses the type address for the address of the contact. The next step here will be to test your API using the mocking service. Navigating over to the right side of the screen, you will notice three different icons, one of which says Try It. Selecting that will pull up the Anypoint platform's mocking service, which will allow you to either start mocking off of your base URI if the API is already hosted there, or you can select Mocking Service, at which point Anypoint platform generates a sample mock URL for the purpose of testing. You can then give an input to the customer ID, and you can hit Send, which will generate a sample response as if the API was live and you had entered a correct customer ID. You can do the same with the customer's endpoint. Select Mocking Service. In this case, there is no input as there is no customer ID or other URI parameter or query parameter, so we can simply hit Send to see that sample response. As you develop more complex APIs, you can imagine that different inputs and outputs will become available to you, and the mocking service makes it very easy to visualize what the API will behave like. And finally, the last step is to publish the API to Anypoint Exchange for future consumption and to share it with your colleagues or, if you so choose, the broader MuleSoft developer community. You can select Publish at the top of the screen, and then select Publish to Exchange. At that point, you will see a screen that looks something like this. You must specify an asset version and an API version. The API version is picked up from the API summary page that you defined earlier, in this case 1.0.0, but the asset version is customizable for yourself. For example, if the same API version has different iterations of code, you can specify 1.0.0 to begin and then update this again when you make changes. Go ahead and hit Publish to Exchange and allow the system to process your API. Once you see the message that says Successfully Published to Exchange, you can click on Exchange to view your API in Anypoint Exchange. It should look something like this, where you have the different parameters along the right and the different endpoints that you created along the left, along with the different data types. Selecting any of them will show you the different types of requests available for that resource, and clicking on it will show you your sample code. Congratulations! You have now built your first API specification. To view more tutorials like this one, and to learn how to build implementations and more advanced workflows with Anypoint platform, please visit us at developer.mulesoft.com and navigate to the Tutorials and How-Tos page. And we are always open to feedback. Please feel free to reach out to us to let us know what other tutorials are of interest to you. Thanks for tuning in.